Hi, Acheron is coming in less than a week, and if you don't know who she is, you should probably start living under a rock. Jokes aside, Honkai Star is getting its version of Rider Mei in 2.1, which is just like Genshin, who also got their version of Rider Mei in version 2.1 too. Acheron has a very unique and a very special kit that differs a lot from the rest of the characters in this game, which will naturally lead to more questions on many things about her. So this video will go through the top 5 most frequently asked questions about Acheron, and I will answer them to the best of my abilities together with some in-game testing. Before we start, I'll be giving away a supply pass / recommend / crystal card to my subscribers at 4K subs, so make sure you subscribe to enter. First, let's set the rules for the test. All tests are done in the brand new MLC 12 second half. All 5 stars are E0 S1, with some having S5 4-star Lycans if it's better, for example Pella on resolution. All DPS will have around 140 speed if they're running speed boots, and 280 crit value from the relic substats, prioritizing 100% crit rate. But if it gets critted from elsewhere like the kit or relics, then more of the crit value will be distributed to the crit damage for fairness. And lastly, these tests are not 100% accurate due to minor variances, such as support critting or having stronger build compared to another support, etc. But I do still believe that these tests will achieve an accurate enough result. If you don't know what Acheron does, I have a guide, link in the description, but since her kit is pretty well known now, in short, she is a lightning Nihility DPS that relies on debuffs, and uses 9 stacks of her talent instead of energy to get her very distinctive ultimate. But due to this very untraditional kit, there is bound to be questions about her team building. Which brings us on to the first question: should you run 2 other Nihility units or 1 Nihility unit plus a Harmony unit? Okay, so first things first, why should you run 2 other Nihility units? One of Acheron's bonus trace abilities, called the Abyss, gives damage percentage depending on 1 or 2 other Nihility units in the team. Pretty obviously, we want to use the first part at all costs because nothing else in the game can straight up give 115% damage bonus. But talking about the second part, while it's still a massive 45%, it is still a lot worse than the first part, and too much of anything gives diminishing returns. So that's where the question of 2 Nihilities or 1 Nihility plus 1 Harmony comes to exist. The answer is, well, it depends. This will be a very common thing you hear me say this video, but nevertheless, the answer will change depending on different factors. Mainly, it's your investment level of Acheron and her teammates specifically. For a benchmark, let's take a look at our E0 S1 Acheron team with Pella, Silverwolf, and Japard on trend. This team is able to clear 12-2 in 2 cycles and seems very good. But we have to remember, this is a slightly high investment team using her absolute best teammates while being at E0 S1. Now let's take a look at Acheron's clear with 1 Nihility plus 1 Harmony. For 1 speed behind Bronya, we get a 4 cycle clear, for Romei we also get a 4 cycle clear, and for Sparkle with attack boots on Acheron we get a 3 cycle clear. So just from the look of this, it's pretty obviously 2 Nihility is better, right? Well, no. Now if you take a look at Acheron in a free-to-play team while keeping the same stats, we get a much less ideal 4 cycle clear. So the answer is really it depends, but to summarize it, for people that do not have her best teammates like, well, Silverwolf or Pella, 1 Nihility plus 1 Harmony could perform similar or slightly better. But otherwise, if you do have those characters, 2 Nihility will perform better. Question 2. Attack boots or speed boots? Once again, it depends, but this time it's a lot more simple and a much clearer answer. But first we have to weigh the pros and cons of attack boots and speed boots. For attack boots, the pros is higher damage but you get less turns. While not having turns is not too bad since you can always rely on your teammates to get your ultimate, and honestly with a few speed substats, getting 120 speed for 3 turns in the first 2 cycles is actually not even that bad. But a big issue with this is that if you have her at E2 and or S1, her E2 gains 1 stack of her ultimate whenever she gets a turn, and her Lycron gives 1 extra stack per attack. So generally speaking, you don't want to run attack boots if you have her at E2 S1. But that being said, at E2, you can just run Sparkle plus attack boots. Now for speed boots. The pros is that you have more turns, but you do less damage. Just like what I said above, if you have her at E2 S1, then speed boots is definitely more recommended if you're not using Sparkle. But for the rest of the people, the main pro about having more turns is more consistent ult uptime. Having both your teammates and you putting in the work to get those stacks is definitely a plus. Now that we know the pros and cons of each boot, let's take a look at the comparison in practice. So as we know from before, speed boots is able to achieve a 2 cycle clear. Now looking at attack boots, it too can also achieve a 2 cycle clear. But we do have to remember this team is Pella, Silverwolf, and Japard with trend, meaning there's a lot of stack generators in this specific team. So while I wouldn't go as far as to say that less strong teams will perform significantly worse while using attack boots, just do keep that in mind if you don't have her best teammates. So what's the verdict? If you have good substats and good teammates, then attack boost will work wonders, otherwise speed boost. But that being said, if you have her at E2 S1, then speed boost is recommended unless you run Sparkle, then attack boost is better. Talking about her E2 S1, question 3, how valuable is her signature light cone? Well, a character with a kit unlike any other character in the same path is bound to have this question. So let's start with what stats does Acheron need? Unlike other Nihility characters, she doesn't care about effect hero or DOT damage increases. Acheron wants the traditional DPS stats like attack, crit, speed and whatnot. That basically makes the majority of Nihility Lycrons obsolete, with the only remaining ones being 5-star Lycrons and 1 4-star, being Goodnight Sleep Well. Okay, well now that we know that how rough she has it for pre-existing Lycrons, how good is the signature? It increases crit damage, inflicts another debuff, making this the only way to get more than one ultimate stack in an action, and we get more damage percentage. Yup, that's really all we need to know. But let's actually take a look in game. E0S1 achieved a 2-phase, as we know. Now let's take a look at E0S0. Well, that's actually not too bad, a 3-phase. But we have to remember that it's Goodnight Sleep Well at S5. And mind you, both Lycron is actually worse than this. At the end of the day, it's still a gacha Lycron, and some might actually find it harder to get Goodnight Sleep Well S5 than just getting her signature. So yeah, all in all, her signature Lycron is very valuable. If you're not fortunate enough to have high Superimposition Goodnight Sleep Well or Silver Wolves Lycron, then if you can afford it, Acheron's signature Lycron will highly benefit her. To go alongside her Lycron, question 4, how valuable is her Eidolon 2? So let's start with her Eidolon 1. It increases crit rate to debuff enemies. And honestly, it's pretty mid, but the main selling point is that it's on the way to E2. That's where the spicy part comes in. So what does Acheron's E2 do? Well, first of all, it decreases the requirement for a bonus trace ability, the Abyss, to 1, and it grants you 1 ultimate stack per turn. Honestly, ignoring the fact that this indirectly makes her do significantly more damage due to more teammate options, more than anything, it makes playing Acheron a lot more fun and a lot more comfortable. Because you are mostly restricted to playing 2 other Nihility units for her best team, and you have much higher uptime on her ultimate, which is the blunt of her damage. Now actually talking about her damage, well, as we have seen before, sacrificing max stack on the Abyss for a Harmony character already performs not too bad. E2 just makes it straight up outperform 2 Nihility obviously. However, I do want to mention that if you're not running Sparkle or Bronya, for example Ron-Mei, she might have a slightly lower uptime on her ultimate, so do keep that in mind. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. E2 is just really strong, and if you take a look in game, we can see that it can one cycle 12-2. And honestly, if I tried a bit harder with another character instead of a sustain unit, 0 cycle might actually be achievable, even against Sam. So yeah, E2 is extremely valuable as it truly unlocks her as a hyper carry we all want her to be. And honestly, if you have Silver Wolves Lycron or Goodnight Sleep Well at S5, you can honestly look to get her Instu instead of her Lycron. Question 5. What is the DPS compared to in Barbato Lune and Jingliu? For this one, I won't theorycraft, but rather just take a look in game. Again, all DPS is at E0S1 with 280 crit value on the relics with priority on 100% crit rate. For Jingliu, she have more crit damage as her kit gives a 50% crit rate, and Lune is using attack boost instead of speed boost because of Sparkle. Everyone is in the most optimal team, so this will be a very fair comparison. For Lune, we are able to achieve a 2-cycle clear just like Acheron. He finished somewhat similarly in the cycle, but it definitely took more attention compared to Acheron. And for Jingliu, we are also able to achieve a 2-cycle clear. But for Jingliu, I won't deny this is a pretty bad showcase for her as she cannot break Sam's weakness. And yet she cleared at the same cycle as Acheron, while also feeling much more comfortable as we have so much more damage to spare. So looking at this result, we can kind of see where she sits. At high investment, she comfortably sits alongside the best DPSs, maybe actually even outperforming Lune in some content, but Jingliu is still holding her ground against Acheron. But at ultra high investment with Eidolons, Acheron could definitely outperform the others. However, that being said, at lower investment points, especially no signature Lycron, Acheron will unfortunately feel a lot worse compared to Lune and Jingliu, but more specifically Jingliu. So ultimately, Acheron's DPS is very comparable to Lune and Jingliu at higher investment levels and could actually even beat them. However, if you do not plan on pulling on her Lycron or don't have her best teammates, you're definitely better off with Jingliu or Lune. So yeah, if you have any other questions, leave them down in the comment section below. I've been kind of seeing these questions over and over again, so I thought I'll make a quick video answering the most common ones.